Hello, everyone. I'm Judith Peterson, CMO of Cerulean Sky. Welcome to Launchpad 21. Today, we are joined by Joy Sybesma, who works with hypergrowth startups to make sure that their leadership teams are growing and maturing as fast as their companies. Welcome, Joy.
Hi, Judith. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Joy, I am very interested, since we both work with startups, I'm very interested to hear your perspectives today, and I would love to know what kind of initiatives you're seeing, startups that you're working with. What kind of initiatives are you seeing this year?
Yeah, well, I focus on the people side, internally, the teams at these startups, and I'm seeing two big trends. One is, hyper growth means speed, and these companies are trying to grow their business and oftentimes doubling their headcount, tripling their headcount within a given year. And so I'm seeing this doubling down of investing in those people so that they can feel supported and they can grow and develop as quickly as the business. The second thing I'm seeing, especially as a result of, I think, COVID and just, this last year and a half that we've had as a world, is the definition of culture is really changing within these companies. And it's kind of migrated away from beer and ping pong and being in the office all hours to really like a focus on your whole self and mental health, and even like the balance between work and life, since we're constantly now in this technology enabled always on Zoom world. So I'm really seeing a focus in investing in people, both all of them their whole self and bringing all of that to work and having balance, but also in doubling down on developing them and supporting them.
So, how do you advise clients in both of those scenarios?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. In my career, I've worked in-house in HR roles and have had a consulting firm, and now have started this company. And I've seen, as I've kind of gone along the way in working with these growing companies, that the problems are actually not unique to each company, even though they feel big and hairy and scary and only like they've been going through them. The realization is that the problems are actually kind of the same depending on the stage of growth each company is in. So I've developed a playbook of really different elements that need to go hand in hand to create a cohesive talent strategy, and a way to truly like up level and support your leaders within your company. But it's a different formula if you're a Series A or if you're on track to IPO. And so that's one big thing I really focus on is meeting my companies where they are and supporting them where they are at their growth stage, not necessarily coming in with, a playbook for a 1,000 person company if you're only at 50, but really starting with where they are.
Yeah, I like that answer because when I work with companies, I try and figure out how much resource is available, right? So either people are outsourcing to me holistically as a CMO, or we're trying to figure out how to use whatever they have to get some momentum going. So from your perspective, when you're, say somebody just is starting out with an idea, they're not even at the point of a company. And I guess where I see this really interesting, because I work with some kind of startups on a venture capital pitch competition, and I know what investors tend to look for when they're assessing, products or companies. But from your perspective, how are investors? What kind of stuff are they wanting to see as people are developing their startups?
Yeah, it's a great question. I see a lot of the venture capitals, not only when they're evaluating a company to invest in them, they're not only looking at the product and the market fit, but they're also looking at the leadership and the track record there. And many of the VCs have started to invest in a talent partner for their portfolio companies. But from what I've seen, it's mostly executive recruiters. And what I think sometimes startups miss is that they have their talent that's already in their company that also needs the same level of checking in to see who can I invest in to develop them and really up level them, and then how do I balance that out with how to level up the company by bringing in external talent. So I think like the VCs, I'm seeing a trend towards starting to care more about not only who you're bringing in to your companies to support you to get to that next stage, but how are you investing in the people who are already there to help them get to that next level? Because, something that can really ruin an exit is if the culture implodes. And that's, I think, a risk factor that isn't always taken into account as much as it should be on the road to hypergrowth.
I like that answer because I think it speaks to scale that you're developing. The other thing too is that one of the things that I've learned as a manager is the more you are able to develop your talent, the more freedom you have to be proactive in problem solving, whatever the next thing is, right? And if you don't make that investment, it's so much more than intelligence. You can hire smart people on paper, but managing and leadership is really this other quality that is really, I think one of the things I've noticed when people are really good at it is that you're able to see a situation and adjust yourself, as opposed to just, to your point with the speed. It's hard to do that in real time and to really try and manage yourself while you're in these situations. So I love the way that you go into detail about these playbooks.
Well, yeah. And, I feel like every startup I've ever worked with has always talked about we're fixing the plane while we're flying it. And, and, but I think sometimes that's used as a cop out a little bit to be messy and to break glass along the way. And where I'm seeing it happen that's really impactful is, I'll give you an example. I was doing this series of talks with some startup leaders. And they really wanted me to focus on, Joy, like help us with leveling, like titles and career pathing and compensation. And what I said to them is, I think that's probably a component of what you want to talk about, but really we need to develop an entire talent strategy. And so I would just advise companies as they're starting to really think holistically about where does my company need to go in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and what's the talent strategy to get there. And that can feel slow. But I think of it as being intentional. And sometimes like with a bow and arrow, the further you pull back that bow, the more accurate the arrow is going to fly. So pulling back and really being intentional, thinking about, do I have the people who are going to help me get to that next level with a little bit of coaching or training or playbook? Can I get them there? And then how do I supplement them with additional talent from the outside who's done it before and can be great leaders and mentors to them?
Joy, fascinating conversation. It's always amazing to me when someone knows their field well. It's very clean and compact. Their sentences. So I know you know what you're doing, and I'm grateful for the companies that are able to work with you. But thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Have a good one. Great 2021, everybody.